When was the last time you truly felt alive during sex? Not just physically stimulated, but awake in every cell of your body. For most of us, these moments are rare treasures in really a sea of disconnected encounters. We live in a culture today that oftentimes it might feel like it's obsessed with sex, but terrified of true intimacy. We have access to endless sexual content, but are starving for authentic connection. We chase bigger, better orgasms while forgetting how to simply feel. Today, I am going to be taking you on a journey into Tantra, what sex and intimacy can be when we strip away the performance, the goal orientation, and any shame. So, whether you're struggling with premature ejaculation, difficulty maintaining an erection, feeling numb during sex, or just sensing that there might be something more, the practices that we are going to explore today have transformed countless relationships for thousands of years, and they are here for you too. Welcome back to The Naked Connection. This is the show that supports driven men to reach sexual mastery and build deep connections. It's Kirsten. And before we dive in, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode. Today isn't just about having better sex, though that definitely is a delicious benefit we are going to receive. This is about connecting more deeply with pleasure, presence, and power. So with that, let's get some. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is Tantra? Well, at its core, Tantra is a profound philosophical and spiritual tradition that originated in India over 1500 years ago. And classical Tantra existed from about 580 to roughly 1580, a little give or take there. And it flourished across India, Tibet, China, and even Japan. And the Chinese version, which you might know as Taoism, actually shares many philosophical roots with Tantra. But what makes Tantra different from other spiritual traditions of its time is I like to consider two big things. First, Tantra teaches that everything has consciousness in it, everything. And there's no separation between divinity and materiality. It's all connected as one. In fancy philosophical terms, that is called non-dualism. And second, Tantric philosophy boldly proclaims that the world is real. And you might be like, well, what are you talking about? Duh. But back then, many religious traditions taught that the world was just an illusion. And Tantric said, nope, this world actually matters. Your body matters. Your pleasure matters. It's all real and it's all divine. This means that in the traditional tantric sense, seeking a good, pleasurable life with pleasure and abundance isn't seen as shallow or unspiritual or wrong. And there's no judgment about wanting to enjoy your time on this earth. Now, you might be wondering, that's cool, Kirsten, but what does this ancient philosophy have to do with my sex life? I'm going to tell you it has everything to do with your sex life, because when we apply tantric practices to sexuality, we can radically shift how we approach pleasure, connection, and even the definition of what good sex means. So in our modern culture, sex is often goal-oriented. We're racing towards that orgasm. We're checking off those boxes of positions or techniques or kinks or performing for our partner's approval. Well, tantric sex really flips that script entirely. Instead of rushing towards the finish line, you're savoring every moment. Instead of narrowing your focus to genitals, you're expanding awareness to your entire body. Instead of performing, you're authentically expressing and experiencing whatever is true for you. And this shift transforms sex from something you do to something that you experience and embody. Think about it like this. When most couples have sex, they are going to follow a predictable pattern. Some kissing, maybe a little foreplay, penetration, orgasm, usually his, and then it's over. The whole encounter might last 15 to 30 minutes. On average sex, according to scientific data, is that intercourse lasts 5 minutes on average, so take that for what it is. In a tantric approach, you might spend hours in a state of arousal and connection. You'd begin with conscious breathing together, perhaps gazing into each other's eyes, slowly awakening sensation throughout the entire body with touch, and building sexual energy without rushing to release it. And the same can be true if you're doing solo sex or masturbation. Same practices apply here as well. And by extending this process, you start to create space for deep intimacy, more intense pleasure, and even spiritual experiences that simply aren't possible in rushed, goal-oriented sex. Now, I don't want to knock the classic traditional 15-minute sex, because that has its place too, and it's awesome and beautiful and fun and feels great. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to offer a both and, having this and something else. So how do we get from ancient spiritual practices to what most people think of as Tantra today? Well, this is where Neo-Tantra enters the scene. This is the modern Western interpretation of Tantra that emerged in about the 1960s and beyond. Some famous Neo-Tantric teachers include Osho, David Deida, Margot Anand, and these teachers innovated practices for the modern era, often focusing more on sexuality, on relationships, and personal growth than on the rituals and philosophies of classical Tantra. So now that you have this understanding that in the 1960s, Tantra got modernized, you might be wondering, is Neo-Tantra authentic Tantra? And that's not really the point. The benefits are that it's more accessible for modern people, more relatable, and it includes teachings about sex and relationships that many of us desperately need and want. If we use Tantra as a philosophy to help bring consciousness to people's sexuality and relationships, we're doing something tremendously valuable. And even if it doesn't perfectly match what was practiced in medieval India. And I think that there is an element of reverence here that should be incorporated in acknowledging that this is where these practices and this perspective and this philosophy came from. So let's talk a little bit about some of the core benefits that Tantra can bring to your relationships, both with yourself and with your partner. So first and foremost, Tantra helps you develop a completely different relationship with your body. Most of us have been conditioned to see our bodies as objects. For both men and women, right? It's something for us to control, something for us to judge or use as a tool. And in Tantra, your body gets to become this temple of consciousness, a vehicle for pleasure, and your most intimate home. It's this temple that we are housed in, and taking care of it and enjoying it and feeling pleasure in it. This shift alone really can heal years of body shame or feeling self-criticism or self-conscious. So perhaps try it out. And secondly, Tantric practices build a profound capacity for presence. Let me ask you this. When was the last time that you were fully present during sex? Like not thinking about how you looked or what your partner was thinking or what you need to do tomorrow or whether she's going to have an orgasm or not, or are you able to maintain yourself from having an orgasm? And so in order to do that, you're going to go think about these other things and you're going to distract yourself from what's actually happening because it's kind of overwhelming and really exciting. So I can't fully be here because then it will end. Well, Tantra teaches you to drop into pure presence, which instantly makes every single sensation more intense and every connection and moment more meaningful. And third, Tantra transforms how you experience pleasure. Most of us have a narrow definition of sexual pleasure that's really focused on orgasm. However, Tantra sexuality expands to include subtle energy experiences, emotional openness, spiritual connection, and full body states of ecstasy that can last much, much longer than a conventional orgasm. And fourth, Tantric practices are able to build an entirely new level of intimacy with your partner. So these first three are in many ways like about your experience within yourself and within your own presence and body and pleasure. So this fourth piece is really looking at the intimacy and connection that you can have with another person. And by slowing down, by using things like eye contact, synchronized breathing, and bringing more awareness to your connection itself, you can create a container for vulnerability and authenticity that most relationships would never experience. So let's take all of that and get really practical. Here are 3 core tantric practices that you can start to incorporate into your sex life today. The first is conscious breathing. This is the foundation of all tantric practices, and it's incredibly simple yet powerful. Now, most of us breathe really shallowly during sex, or we hold our breath entirely as we approach orgasm. Like it's like a very chest shallow breath. And this actually limits our pleasure and disconnection from our bodies. And for most men, oftentimes, if you put yourself into this almost like hyperventilation state, you're activating your nervous system in such a way that you're speeding up the pathway to orgasm. So instead, take deep, slow breaths where you're really breathing into and out of your belly, all the way down to your genitals, to your sexual center. And you want to imagine that your breath is actually traveling from your nose or your mouth all the way down to your pelvis. And then breathe back up again. And if you're with a partner, you can try to synchronize your breath together. So you're really breathing throughout your entire body, breathing from the depths of your belly, breathing really deeply from your pelvis. And what this does is it activates your entire body. You can move sexual energy beyond just your genitals, and it helps you really stay present instead of getting lost in your head. Like that shallow breath is like really chest heady, whereas this deeper, slower breath is more grounding and allowing you to be more present in the moment. And it significantly is going to intensify your orgasm when you do choose to climax. So starting with that deep, deep breath, breathing from the root, pelvis, depth of your belly, all the way up your body and out again, and allowing as you breathe to experience the expansion and contraction of the pleasure that you're experiencing and pulling it and pushing it throughout all of your body through your breath. That's really the foundation of improving your sex life. The very first thing you can do, it's absolutely free 99, breathe. The second tantric practice is extended arousal. Now, most people rush through this arousal phase of sex, right? We're eager to get to that main event. I get it. In Tantra, experiencing arousal is the main event. It's like an interesting reframe, isn't it? So try this. The next time you're self-pleasuring or the next time you're with your girl, commit to staying in a state of arousal without orgasm for at least 20 minutes. You can build up to much longer periods over time if you so choose, but try that on as an experiment. Like, I want to be aroused for 20 minutes. See what happens. And when you feel yourself starting to approach that climax, slow down. Deep breathing and move the energy up throughout your body rather than releasing it. And I'll share this for men. A great practice to start doing where you incorporate your breath and in order to extend your arousal is to think about pulling the energy, pulling your pleasure up and into your body. So instead of thinking I'm going to go down and out, literally through my penis, through ejaculation, think I'm going to go from where I'm feeling the most amount of arousal and pleasure, usually your cock, right? You're going to breathe from that place, pulling that pleasure up and into your body, up through your body. So try that on for size the next time you're pleasuring yourself or you're with your partner, pulling your pleasure up and in. By extending this arousal, you are not just going to delay gratification, you're actually building more sexual energy, which leads to far more profound experiences of pleasure and what is possible for you. This practice might even move into full body orgasms or the ability to have multiple orgasms. Or, if you have issues like premature ejaculation or difficulty reaching orgasms, this is going to help really mediate some of that. And the third practical Tantra practice is full body awareness. This practice expands your experience of pleasure far beyond your genitals to include your entire body. This practice expands your experience of pleasure beyond just your sexual center to include your entire body. while you are in a state of arousal, especially that extended arousal where you're getting that breath going, consciously scan your body from head to toe, noticing sensations everywhere, not just in your erogenous zones. So where do you feel heat, tingling, expansion, contraction, pulsing, tightness, softness, release? Beginning to notice all of these sensations and bring your breath and intention to any areas that feel numb or disconnected. So maybe you're noticing that you feel absolutely nothing in your chest. As you're taking those deep, long breaths, slow breaths, bring your awareness to your chest. And a really great practice to actually start doing before you even step into an aroused state with yourself or with another person is to make it a practice. If let's say that you meditate in the morning, or maybe while you're driving to work in the morning, is to state out loud what you feel and where you feel it. And to just do this for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever you feel like you can do. Trust me, it goes by fast. So starting with, I can do it right now for a couple of seconds here. I've noticed I feel buzzing in my chest. I feel tingling in my fingers. I feel the beat of my heart. I feel a softness in my belly. I feel tightness in my low back. I feel softness at the soles of my feet. Right? And just over and over and over again. And you start to recognize how alive your body really is. And you also start to recognize that sensations aren't necessarily good or bad. They just are. Like, oh, my feet are soft right now. Oh, my chest is tingly right now. Whatever that means. Like inviting in the experience of simply noticing what's happening in your body. Super, super fun, super powerful, very fast, very accessible, and a way to experience heightened pleasure during sex. Now, many people discover that they can experience orgasmic sensation in really surprising places. Their hands, their chest, their face, their feet, even the crown of their head can become really sexually pleasurable. And this practice is really going to help you break free from the idea that sex is just about what happens below the waist. Thinking about the fact that you could maybe have an orgasm from the experience in your fingers is really, really exciting. So starting to think about how can I incorporate this full body awareness not only into my sexual life, but also into my daily life and everywhere I'm going. With those 3 practices, now let's talk a little bit about how tantric practices can specifically transform your intimate relationships. One of the most powerful aspects of tantric partnership is the emphasis on polarity and complementary energies. In many modern relationships, partners try to be everything to each other, right? You want your friend, you want your lover, you want your therapist, you want your business partner, which can really sometimes dampen the erotic charge. Expecting someone to be your best friend, your therapist, your business partner, and also your lover, it muddies the waters in a lot of ways. And Tantra teaches us to understand and work with the natural polarities that create attraction. It's about the dance between different energies, whether you call them masculine or feminine, yin and yang, Shiva and Shakti, or any other terms that resonate for you. So here's what this might look like in a tactical, tangible practice. Instead of approaching conflict with your partner as something to fix or resolve as quickly as possible, you might take on the idea to see it as an opportunity to understand the different energies you each bring. Perhaps one of you naturally embodies more structure and direction, while the other embodies more flow and receptivity. Neither is better or worse. They're simply complementary. And in the bedroom, working with polarity might mean consciously taking turns leading and surrendering. Or it might mean allowing yourself to fully embody your natural energy, whether that's taking charge or melting into receptivity rather than trying to be equal in every single moment. Communication can also be transformed in tantric relationships. So instead of just talking about practical matters or surface level feelings, the intention is to practice deep listening and authentic expression. So if you're in a partnership, try this out. Sit facing each other with eyes, they can be open or they can be closed. And take turns speaking for 3 to 5 minutes each, sharing whatever is true for you in the moment. So maybe inviting your partner for 3 to 5 minutes, you can even put a timer on and invite them the space to share, uninterrupted. You might even be sitting there with your eyes closed and they're just sharing, and then you switch. You can share sensations in your body, emotions, desires, fears, maybe even doing that. What am I feeling and where am I feeling it? The listening partner simply receives without responding, judging, or planning what to say. And this kind of connection creates space for truth that many relationships rarely invite in. It allows partners to be seen and known in their full humanity, not just the parts that seem acceptable or that fit the roles they've established. I think another transformative tantric relationship practice is conscious touch. Most of us touch our partners habitually, the same way in the same places with the same intentions. I mean, how many times have you gone to greet your partner and it's like a peck on the kiss and a peck on the cheek and you don't even realize that you've done it and you're on to the next thing. So conscious touch really means bringing full awareness to the experience of touching someone else and of being touched by someone, which is interesting because those are two very different things. So try spending 10 minutes, maybe if that feels overwhelming, 1 minute, touching your partner's hand as if you've never touched a hand before. Exploring it with curiosity and presence. Maybe noticing the textures, the temperature, how the skin responds to different types of touch, and then switching roles. And I mean, you could literally do this driving in the car. You could do this at a coffee shop. You could, this is something that you can take on immediately. And this simple practice can really reignite the sense of discovery and awe that often is lost, especially in long-term relationships. We get so habituated and so comfortable with this person or people that we almost forget how exciting and different and new they might be. And it reminds us that our partner is not just an object or a role, but a mysterious, ever-changing being, wholly worthy of our full attention. It's super interesting. And that you are the same to them, that you are constantly evolving and changing and mysterious and enticing and different for them every single day. If this is resonating with you and you're thinking, I want to take this a step further, a really beautiful tantric practice that I learned is called sex magic, and I did a whole episode on it. It's a beautiful practice that works around sexual energy and life force energy, and it's this really, really beautiful way of bringing your entire body online through an aroused state and connecting it with a desire that you have and calling that into your life. It's super fun. It's really exciting. You can do it with a partner. You can do it alone. Try it out if this is resonating with you. I just wanted to drop that little thought in here right now. And before we wrap up, I do want to address some common questions and concerns about incorporating Tantra into your life. So first and foremost, you do not need a partner to practice Tantra. Many of the most powerful practices are done alone, and developing your own tantric practice can actually make you a better partner when you do enter into a relationship. Second, you don't need hours of free time. While those traditional tantric sessions might last for hours, you can incorporate tantric practices into even brief, intimate encounters. The foundational practices that I shared with you today, those can be done within minutes. Even a 30-second, conscious breathing practice before rushing out the door can shift your entire day. And third, you don't need to be this flexible, fit, young, or any other physical ideal to benefit from Tantra. Your body, exactly as it is right now, is the perfect vehicle for this type of practice. And I think that it's beautiful because Tantra really embraces all bodies, all ages, all abilities. And third, you don't need to be some flexible, young, fit, doing the splits thing in order to benefit from Tantra, okay? It's accessible to you immediately right now. And finally, you don't need to identify as spiritual to benefit from Tantra practices. You don't need to believe in chakras or energy or divinity. The practices themselves create powerful effects regardless of your belief system. So think about it like this. You don't need to understand the biochemistry of endorphins to benefit from exercise, right? You just need to move your body. Similarly, you don't need to embrace all of the philosophy of Tantra to benefit from its practices. I also want to be real with you about the modern tantric landscape. Unfortunately, there have been many cases of manipulation and abuse in some of the tantric schools and by some of the leaders and teachers. And so the power dynamics of a teacher-student relationship can create opportunities for exploitation. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And if you decide, if you're diving down this path of Tantra, any teacher will be interested in your empowerment and your awakening, not their own ego. If someone claims to have all of the answers or demands unquestioning obedience, that's going to be a red flag and something for you to consider and take a hard look at. And remember that just because someone has energy or charisma does not mean that they've evolved in their humanity and their ethics. So this is why it is so important to seek teachers who have both energy integrity and personal integrity. I studied for years under Layla Martin. She's a beautiful tantrika and has really educated and taught so many people in what I would consider a really beautiful and intentional space and container. And as we come to the end of today's episode, I really want to emphasize something important. Tantra isn't about becoming some perfect sexual being or achieving some exotic spiritual state. It's really about coming home to yourself, your body, your desires, your authentic expression. And I think for many of us, sexuality has become really disconnected from the rest of our lives. We compartmentalize it. Maybe you hide it, rush through it, use it to numb out, use it to escape. And Tantra invites us to reintegrate our sexuality as a really natural and healthy part of our whole being. And this integration can heal so many wounds, shame about our bodies or our desires, fear about being truly seen, patterns of using sex for validation rather than connection, difficulty communicating what we want, or blocks to experiencing pleasure more fully. When we bring consciousness to our sexuality through these practices, we're not just improving our sex lives, we're really reclaiming an essential part of our humanity. And, one of the teachings that I learned from Tantra is that if you think about it, everything that you see that is alive comes from sex. And so if we spend so much time like blocking out, hiding, shaming this act that creates everything that we get to touch and see and feel and experience, like the trees, the birds, the flowers, the grass, the fish, the sea, the people around us, like all of that comes from sex. And so it's such a beautiful thing. And so bringing that back into our life in this really beautiful and honored way, I think is really powerful. And it's been powerful for me and informative and really transformative for my life. And so I've been just so excited to be able to take the time today to share just a little bit of this with you. Whether you're looking to deepen your spiritual practice or enhance your intimate relationships, if you want to heal sexual wounds or simply experience more pleasure and presence in your life, Tantra offers a rich tapestry of wisdom and practices to support you. So if you are interested in learning more specific tantric practices, I'll be sharing more of those in future episodes. And if you have any questions about anything that we covered today, please reach out to me, ask a question, leave a thought, leave a review. Head on over to thenakedconnection.com/question and submit your questions. And again, this is Kirsten. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Until next time, let's get some.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Naked Connection. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Trust me on this, your sex life and that special someone in your life will thank you for it. And if you really love the show, please take a moment and leave a 5-star review or a written review and let me know what you think. It would mean so much to me end this show. Until next time, happy connecting.